Good morning. This is Angela with Parker's Permaculture. It's the end of March 2019. I am in my front yard garden. It is about 47 degrees and windy today, raining off and on. We have ripped out most of half of our driveway, as you can see here. So I'm working on turning this into more garden beds. So here is the first bed that I've made. And then I'm working on a second bed here, and my goal is to catch street runoff from across the street if we pan this way past my mulch pile. So here is across the street from us. All of the rainfall accumulation from this cul-de-sac comes straight across the road and right here, and it previously ran down this nice little chute of my driveway and into my basement. So my goal is to create essentially swales, beds to slow and sink the water. So here's the first collection point where the runoff accumulates, and that's a low area. And then if it overflows, it's going to hit here, which is the second low area. And then if it overflows that, it's going to hit there. And hopefully these beds and the plants here will absorb all of that water. Also, I hate concrete in general. I feel like it's a waste of space. So we are keeping half our driveway for our cars, and the other half, we did not need a driveway that fit 4 minivans on it. So, okay, so these beds don't look very glamorous right now. This is all of the extra pieces of concrete. They will look lovely when they're full of plants. So I've just ended up taking some compost from the backyard from another project, and that has gone in here. I've had to fork all of the bed of this, which is sand and gravel. I've had to fork it up and remove a bunch of it, and then what's left underneath is this very dense clay subsoil, and I've broken that up as best I can, but I'm going to have to import a ton of biomass because there just isn't any. So one of my solutions is to reuse everything and create no waste. And so I have all of these fig prunings that I'm going to use to make a hugel bed. So hugel culture is a German method of burying whole logs or large sticks in the garden. And as they break down, they are slow release fertilizer. So this is the pruning from one fig tree. I took my Desert King fig back radically in the late summer, early fall, and this is the result. So this wood has sat out all winter, and hopefully I won't end up with germinating figs, because figs root easily in this bed. It's pretty dead. So hopefully it'll be fine. So fig wood is light and breaks down fairly quickly. As you can see here, it's already really starting to break down. So hopefully it will release that extra dose of nutrients that the plants in this bed need relatively quickly. Now, hugel culture, you can Google it. Hugel culture tends to have some problems in the first year as these large logs and pieces are starting to break down. They can bind up some nitrogen. So I tend to plant legumes or I plant perennials in these beds, and I don't rely on plants that are heavy nitrogen feeders for the first year or two. Now, once this wood really gets spongy and decomposing, and the detritivores are all doing their work, then we will see a lot more productivity out of these beds. I also tend to bury bones in here. Same thing for slow release calcium. So, things like steak bones and ham bones and chicken bones get buried in here. After I put these logs down, I'll show progression later. So I put the logs down. I have cardboard here. And so I did leave actually a bunch of sand under the cardboard and sand on top of it, because again, this is for drainage, and I have that dense clay subsoil. So I want to create some drainage. So then I put down the cardboard to suppress weeds. You always want to overlap your cardboard at least 2 inches to keep weeds from creeping under. And then I'll put down the logs. After I put down the logs, I will put down the contents of the duck coop and chicken coop, which would be prunings and straw and hay, and then all of their nitrogenous manure, which will be great to kind of counteract the nitrogen binding of the breaking down logs. And then I'll put compost from the garden, and then on top of that I will put coffee grounds and coffee chaff, which is pH neutral. They can get from a local coffee roaster about 40 blocks from my house. And then I will put wood chips on top of that. And that will be all these beds. So that this bed will end up going to about right here. And then as we're moving down here, So you can see where I've forked up and removed a bunch of gravel. There's a thin layer of gravel and sand here, and under that is that subsoil. You can see some chunks of that really red clay. Red for the Pacific Northwest. And then moving here, you can see where there were blocks of concrete. So we had them cut into these 2 foot by 2 foot squares, which weigh about 80 pounds. So this area here is actually where my greenhouse is going to be going. So there'll be a little garden edge here, and then my greenhouse will start here. And this super dwarf apple tree is getting given to a friend. And this bush cherry, Juliet, is getting moved over here. So half of that bed and then half of this will end up being a greenhouse. I already have the windows. Wanted to build it for years. I've had the windows set in my basement. And then these blocks here that were driveway blocks will be the floor of the greenhouse. So those I'm not sledging up. I'm keeping them for the floor of my greenhouse. So my goal is to have some place that I can have my oranges and Meyer lemons that are not in my parents' greenhouse, and a place that I can propagate succulents and plants. It will not be heated per se, and also it will have probably, I'm thinking Clematis montana or some other clematis over the top of it for the summer so it doesn't overheat. And then this area here will have the bush cherry, and then I'll also probably have a small tree to screen the greenhouse from the street. This was the best aspect in my yard for putting a greenhouse in terms of sun collection. I don't have room in the backyard. This is pretty much the best spot that I've got. And then this here will be other beds behind it. I'll have an area here for my garbage and recycle. This will be a stepped path. There's a bed back there that I'm already working on. You can see I layered in, I took out all of the sand and gravel back there, thick compost, and then a layer of mulch on top. And that will have more plants in it as well. And then farther down the road, I would like to remove this concrete pad. It's been cut, but it's going to have to be a project for another time. I would like to remove that and do like a stone mosaic or something different here. That's too large of a pad of concrete, but I got to kind of pace myself because I'm trying to put in all these garden beds, build a greenhouse in the backyard, build a rocket stove bread oven. So I got enough projects for this summer, so that's a future project. You can see in my front yard, which is relatively small, my neighbor's arborvitae, which I used to I kind of have a love-hate relationship with it. I don't like the way it looks, but it's a fantastic windbreak. So I have a lot of things that can grow there that I can't grow in other places in the yard. The things that are really sensitive to wind, I have a lot of feijoas that are over here that are sheltered and do very well and protected from the strong winds that come down our street from the gorge. So you can see here my honeyberries are starting to bloom. Let's go take a look at them. It is late March and they're already providing ample bee food. Yesterday it was in the 60s and sunny and the bees were all over this puppy. So this is a honeyberry, aka a hascap. It is an edible honeysuckle. I really enjoy this plant. Sorry, my hands are really dirty because I've been moving concrete. The bees love these. Bumblebees, native bees, and honeybees all really like these flowers, and hoverflies. And they bloom early, they're early bee food, and they will fruit the end of May, like they'll be ready to pick. And so they're ready before blueberries. The berries from here are tarter than a blueberry, more tart than a blueberry, but they have a really nice flavor. They make fantastic jam and syrup, but you do have to balance the acidity of them with other ingredients. They're very tart. So I will eat them straight. My kids will eat them straight, but a lot of people probably wouldn't like how tart they are. It's sort of like if you took a blueberry and squeezed lemon juice on it, that is what it tastes like to me. So they call them honeyberry, but they're not overwhelmingly sweet. They're quite tart. But again, really good, really nutritious. This is a plum tree, which is an ugly plum that I grafted myself. And it's a delicious Italian prune plum, but the branching habit is not that lovely. Versus you can see I have this plum here, which is an early Laxton. It has a lovely open shape to it, and it's easy to prune, and the branches want to spread really low. So I enjoy that plum a lot. I enjoy the fruit off that plum. This is my Juliet bush cherry. In the back I have a Romeo bush cherry. So my boys are growing peas here. So this is the front yard garden. I don't have that much property. People often wonder or ask me how large my plot is. It's a 1/4 acre, including this honkin' big driveway. the house footprint and everything. So for living in the city, it's a big yard, but it's not actually that big of a yard. So I'm cramming as much as I can in. I have more than 40 fruit trees at this point in time, and I've lost count of the number of berry bushes. It's a bazillion, and cane fruit and things like that. So anyway, so that's just an update from Parkrose Permaculture for the end of May. I am leaving this weekend to Rafe Roller Derby tournament in Tucson, so I'm excited to go there and see all the cacti and things. And then hopefully I'll come back and things here will be even more green, and I will finish up this part of the driveway and start in on my greenhouse. So I'll be back with an update soon. Thanks.